On this episode, I sit down with the most fabulous that just might be the Jimi Hendrix of cutting hair. My guest is Timmy, and he got this, or most of it at least, from his mama. Growing up without a father, his mother nurtured him in only the way a mother could, and this turned out to be serendipitous. She instilled in him the value of thrift, which shaped his unique style, emphasized the importance of self-employment and responsibility in both business and in life, and demonstrated the significance of acceptance, particularly regarding his sexuality. We also talk about, if someone crosses your path 3 times, it's time to introduce yourself. You never know. They just might become your best friend.
Hi guys, this is Chase Brown, live in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, one of my best experiences was being a guest on a moderately good podcast. Now my best friend Timmy Wendowski is going to be the guest. I'm so excited for y'all to meet him. There's always one person in your life that kind of teaches you that it's okay to live outside the lines, be yourself. I would not be me without Timmy. Enjoy the show. Let's get at it.
Everybody, welcome to a Moderately Good podcast. I hope you're coming back. If this is your first time, you're in for a treat. Have a very special guest with me tonight. Before I get started, all the regular shout outs. Joe Andrade Media does all my cool pictures online. Wish Pocket, that's Jason. He does all my audio. No Names Originals, that's my guy Jaron. Support local North Carolina artists. My guy Mo, he has a Go Bubble app. That's the detailing service to your home. And if you use the promo code Moderately, you get a discount. We have Lone Sun Decor, which is my guy Peyton. He does cool Aztec wood carvings and stuff. You got to go check his stuff out. It's really, really cool. And one of my newest sponsors, Shiner Saloon here in Austin, Texas. My guy David has dropped off a bunch of drinks and booze and shirts and things. So thank you so much, David. I really appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. It helps me out so much. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, please follow. That also helps out so much. I'm not going to waste any time. My guy, Timmy. What's up, Timmy?
Hi, hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Dude, I've already told you like how much I just love like your style and like everything that you fucking do. So like, I'm so glad that you're here. So before we get started with the whole thing, just do all like your shout outs where people can find you, what you do and stuff. Like give them your whole scoop.
Okay, so my name is Timothy Wendowski. I go by Timmy. I am a stylist in Victoria, Texas. I've been a hairdresser for about 15 years. You can find me on social media. My Instagram is Timmy Wendowski, and that's the same, I guess, across the board for Facebook and whatnot.
All the stuffs.
All the things.
Okay.
Stuff and things.
Right.
Yes.
So, and you have your own place, right? Like you do...
Well, I did. I no longer do. I just shut it down because I'm moving into another building and the building's not ready yet. So my salon is called Timmy John's Salon in Victoria, Texas, which is it's being built right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you can do like a whole grand opening type deal and stuff like that?
That's the fun thing. In my last salon, I just had hair and nails. And this one, we're going to do a little bit more like a spa. So you'll have hair, nails, lash extensions, maybe a massage therapist along the lines of that.
That's cool. So like, did you always envision like going from kind of hairdressing to this? Or did something along the way you go, man, like I could do like a spa or something?
Yeah, I when I worked for Tony and Guy, I was their show horse or dog or whatever you want to call it. And I realized that I wanted to make money for myself rather than other people using my persona, my talents and whatnot. So I was like, you got to put the footwork in, you got to work for the companies, get some experience, and then you can, go on your own, open your own thing. And so being your own boss is definitely the way to go.
It is.
Especially in the hair industry. So that's definitely been the ultimate goal.
All right. So you go to beauty school and you become a hairdresser, right? Where's the first place that you work at?
So it was actually Tony and Guy in the Woodlands. I went to the Aveda Institute there in the Woodlands, which is a very, very fancy, very, pretty much a shoe-in to any salon I would want with that on my resume. So Tony and Guy to me was top tier. They're world renowned. They're, ahead of the game.
The one in the Woodlands is fancy.
Yeah, it was. The downfall was it was in a mall.
Yeah.
But aside from that, the style of cut, the training, they're just so trendy. Everyone there looked the part. It definitely taught me a lot about who I wanted to be as a stylist.
And when you if you've ever stepped into a Tony and Guy, like once you step into it, you kind of forget you're in a mall if you don't look back out the door. You know what I mean? Because of the vibe and everything they do in there, right?
It's so weird because my salon has a bunch of local artists and it has different colors. I have a mural on the wall and all this stuff. And when I started with Tony and Guy, it was black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't forget that. But of course, we always had some trendy techno house music, playing stuff, and you have a bunch of pretty people cutting hair and looking all uniformed in their black and white attire.
Okay. I mean, there has to be drama.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give me your best drama story from Tony? It doesn't have to necessarily involve you, but your best Melrose Place, Tony and Friends, 90210 story.
Yeah. So one of my closest friends there, she had this client and he was a personal trainer. So he would come in, him and his wife, doing their thing. He's coming to get his hair cut. She's getting her hair colored. They're departmentalized. So someone does color and someone does cut. So they're separate. So this girl's doing the guy and another girl's doing his wife. They come in. Eventually you start to see him come by himself. She's not coming as much, whatever. Well, then the stylist starts to become his client. So she's going to get
personal training client.
She's going to get training from him. He's doing whatever. Maybe they're changing, then
swapping, trading services.
I'll do this for free. You do my hair for free, whatever. So then we're out having dinner and, the wife and husband, the clients come to meet us at Berry Hill or wherever we are in the Woodlands. And I'm like, what is going on? I ask her, I'm like, are y'all messing around? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is not normal. These are not our friends. This is your client. You're his client. You get close with your hairdresser for sure. But it happens so fast. I'm like, and his wife, I'm like, the way you're looking at each other, something is going on. So turns out she was definitely having an affair with her trainer. And
they were trading services.
They were definitely trading services, and it was not okay. But what ended up happening is she got pregnant. Yeah. He ended up leaving his wife for her. They had a kid and they were together for a couple of years or whatever. But that's some, scandalous shit. Was everybody work as a team there, or were there people that were kind of cutthroat? Oh yeah, there was definitely cutthroat people there. Could they have done a reality show on that Tony and Guy when you worked there? Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things. So when you walk in the Tony and Guy, they have these huge windows. You can see straight in there, right? Well, I was the first chair, and I kept trying to move my station because people were walking by, they're bumping me, they're in my way. And I would move it and I'd come back the next day and my shit was moved back. I'm like, what is going on? I'd move it again. A couple of days, I move it back and I'm like, hey, why do y'all keep moving my shit? I don't want to sit here anymore. People are in my way. This door is constantly open and I'm crazy about open doors. And she's like, well, they like your look. So they want you to be the first person they see when they walk by or walk in. And I'm like, this is the worst compliment I've ever, had. I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to be your show pony. You're like, I'm here to work. Yeah. Not just look at me. I look trendy or whatever. But that was one of the things that I was like, okay, this is going to work for me in my future when I open my own place and make the money for myself. Oh, one of the things when I quit Tony and Guy, there was a client that wanted to bring her son in. And I don't know how old he was, whatever. She said that we've been there a couple of times. She said, but I don't want that gay guy to do my son's hair. I don't want him to be around him. And the manager was like, okay, whatever. So she pulls me to the back and she's like, hey, we have a client coming in. They requested blah, blah. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we're a progressive salon. It's 2000, whatever it was. And you have the audacity to walk up to me and tell me that. I'm like, fuck you and this place. Like, I quit. And it was in the middle of me coloring my hair, and I was coloring my eyebrows, so they were like bleaching. I'm like just cussing everyone out and throwing shit and causing a damn scene. But I could not believe that that lady told me that, and just like it was normal. So then, you know, I had clients coming in as I'm gathering my shit and cussing people out. They come in and I'm like, I'm not going to the back. This is not the 19 whatever you think is happening here. That's not going to happen. I'm like, and you should tell this woman, like, you should not be you can't tell people what to do with their children, but tell them that we don't do that here.
We don't support that.
We don't support that. Go somewhere else. Go to Supercuts if that's what you're doing. So they come in, and then she's like asking the kid, oh, blah, blah, about your hair. And he's like, look, mommy, I want it like his. Points at me, and she's like, could you come here? I'm like, are you kidding me? But I'm not going to be a dick.
Yeah. It's a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So he points, I was like, yes, this is what I want, mommy. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, that'll look great on you. And I'm like looking at them like, how did you just say that to me? And now the kid's like trying to get his hair cut like me because he's probably a little homo. But that was some crazy stuff. And the last story is, this girl, we had one bathroom and there was like 18 stylists. And these are from the ages of, 18 to 50 something, 60. Some people were fresh out of school. Some people have been doing hair for 20 years at this point. And this girl had to use the restroom. And
a client or an employee?
An employee. She's a new employee. She's a new stylist. I think she was 18 or 19, and the bathroom was taken. She was rushing, whatever. She's like, I have to pee. I'm like, well, go to Macy's and use their restroom. She's like, no, I can't. I'm in the middle of a whatever. So she goes to the kitchen, pops up on the damn sink, and pees in the common area in the sink, and just like relieves herself. And we're like, what the hell is going on? And this girl looks like a Kardashian's cousin. Like, she's beautiful, mixed, Armenian with I don't know what, just hair and makeup. Like, you would never think that she would talk the way she talked or did the shit that she did. And she just peed in that sink, and she ended up getting fired from her first. We're like, we wash our hands and our mouth, like we use this sink, and this is our kitchen.
Can you imagine, you're probably still living with your parents, right? Like, yeah. And so you go home like, why'd you get fired? Well, I pissed in the sink.
Can you imagine?
I can't.
Oh my God. Yeah. So there was some crazy shit that went on in that first salon, and it was the first time that I had seen a walkout. There was a group of people who had been there for 3 or 4 years, and as I was coming in, they had all made a plot or plan.
Like as you were starting to work there?
As I was starting to work there, I'm looking at these people, and I can't remember anyone's name, and I'm this queen with this crazy ass hair and eyebrows, and I'm like, hey, you, and they're like, my name is so-and-so. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what your name is. I need someone to go, I was just like up in there and like, who is this guy? But there was a girl, and she was a manager, and I always asked her for help, but she seemed so uninterested in doing anything.
She was planning the escape.
Anything for me. And I'm like, what is this bitch's problem? And they're like, probably because she's your manager and you can't remember her name. You've been here for, some time. I'm like, well, tell the bitch, whatever. So there was probably like 6 to 10 of them that ended up leaving that Tony and Guy and opening up like their own place. And
what was that like for you to come in to that environment? And like, because when you go into a job, you have an expectation of like, oh, we're getting a job, everybody's gonna get along, blah blah blah. And little do you know, before you even get there, there's a plot to leave. Right. So like, how
it was so disheartening, and I was so traumatized by thinking that that's the way it worked. That they were just. I was like, this is the best job that you could have, it was my first job right out of Aveda, starting my career. And I was so honored to work for Tony and Guy. I thought it was like top tier, and I'm like, where are they going? What's better than this? So that definitely put a burden on me. But it helped me later in life when I got around to working at someone's salon, and I was at the point where I was ready to go on my own. I made it a point to not take anyone from that salon because I had seen what it had done, and how that played out, and come full circle. So as I'm closing my salon, waiting for my other salon to be ready with city whatever regulations and stuff. It wasn't ready, so I went back to the salon that I left, and I didn't take anyone. So she was very open.
She was like, "Come back."
Yeah, she's like, "You left like the most perfect way you can in that situation." So that did hurt me, but it did help me later on in my career.
Okay, so I've always thought, like, if I probably wasn't a personal trainer, like, I would want to cut hair.
Yeah.
Like, I've thought about, like, going to beauty school.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the hardest thing about beauty school? Like, what's the hardest thing to learn? Like, if I were to go to beauty, what am I going to struggle with?
The learning.
Yeah, I do struggle with learning.
Well, so the Aveda Institute is very different from anywhere else. They're like 90% success rate. People that I went to school with are insta famous and have very successful salons and are making great money. But the Victoria Beauty College, when I started there, before I went to Aveda, I was teaching people how to cut hair, and I'm like, I'm also a student, but I'd been doing it, just teaching myself. But someone once said,
no, I was gonna say, what you taught yourself, was that very much like what you learned, or was it nothing like what you were doing? Were you doing the right things at home already, or
yeah, I was
it very natural, like to go like the way you do it?
Yeah, and still the same way. And it's hard for me to teach because I'm so visual and I'm backwards. I used to be left-handed, but where I went to school, they made me right-handed. So everything I do as a hairdresser, I do backwards or upside down compared to a right-handed person.
Like Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
Cutting hair.
I tried to teach myself guitar, and I was like, I need to be left-handed with guitar. But they didn't teach you proper cuts or lines or whatever. They'd be like, oh, just cut it, and if you mess it up, we'll fix it, kind of thing, rather than be like, go through the nape and pull it 45 degrees and cut, long to short or whatever it may be. They were just like, fuck it up and figure it out, pretty much. Yeah. So going to a school like that, and I've had assistants. I probably had 10 assistants since I've had my own place. And it was retraining them because they pretty much were taught to pass their state board rather than to learn how to cut hair.
To cut hair.
Yeah, properly. Yeah. Or know, like, it's all a base. And Tony and Guy, that was a thing. It was, to this day, parting, sectioning, distribution, elevation. And that's the base of every cut that I still do to this day. And that was just
hammered into
my brain. So it's like, it's pretty impossible for me to fuck it up because it's all I know.
Well, it's kind of like for me, like I got my personal training certification, but my education really came when I went to 24-Hour Fitness and started training there. It's like for you, like you go to Aveda, you get the education, but what you really learn is when you get that first job hands-on. And all the hands-on stuff. Yeah.
And that's the best thing. So going to a school, like if you were to, I'm sure they're more advanced now, but still I've had, people come out of school and like, what the hell did they teach you? Because they didn't, and have to retrain them if it's not somewhere like Tony and Guy or Aveda, which, at that point it was like $30,000 to go through their schooling. And then those like community places or Victoria Beauty College would have been like 10 or something like that.
Right. Okay. So I have a question.
Okay.
Chase are y'all best friends?
Chase is my best friend. Chase is my person of 22 years, 23 years, maybe 20 years. It's a long fucking time.
Okay. So when I was like, hey, do you want to do this, blah, blah, whatever. And you're like, well, hey, can you send me something so I can see what it's like or something like that? And I was like, did you watch Chase's? And you said, no. I was like, his best friend did not watch his podcast?
I'm telling you.
But I not that I think that that's bad. Yeah. I was just curious, like, why? And this is my guess. Mm-hmm. Is it just like, that's y'all's relationship. You don't have to kind of see everything he does to be his friend, right?
Yeah. But I also, it's like if someone's like, there's a new album out, there's a new show, there's a new something, I have to mentally prepare myself and be in a state where I am absorbing what I'm watching or listening to or doing. And I couldn't, with how much shit I do, I can't just like watch it on my phone and be like, oh, cool. I would miss a lot of the stuff that you were talking about that meant something or I knew the story of. I would just not be focused. So I was like, well, I'll watch it when I have time to sit down by myself in my house. I put it on the, TV with surround sound, and I was eating pickles and just like watching this podcast. Like, it had my full attention. I'm like, get away, dog. I'm doing something right now. So that's kind of why. But he he sends me stuff all the time. He's like, watch this performance. I was on the news in Vegas. I was in blah, blah, blah. Did you see it? And I'm like, no. He's like, bitch, I sent it to you 3 weeks ago. I'm like, I'll get to it like next week. So, but also, yeah, the whole like best friend versus fan thing. I'm not a fan, I separate him and bring his ass down real quick. And he likes that, about me. I'm like, bitch, I'm not, but he'll be like, oh, I'm promoting something. Go share it on my page. And for stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, but if it's something that he's done, like a podcast or he was on some show, I'll be like, I'll get to it when I do.
Well, I think what's cool about the statement that you made is you go like, I want to make it a priority. Mm-hmm. And if I don't go, I'm going to do this at this time. It is not a priority.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
It's important.
I feel honored that you took the time to watch. So, okay. So you said while you're watching it, a lot of the stuff that Chase was talking about, you were there.
Yeah.
So how accurate was his description of some of these things?
Everything was on point, and it's so cool to be taken back to that place. And at any minute, I was like, he's gonna mention me, that I was there, or it was me that did that, or I, because everything he was saying, I was in that place, and mentally. So every story that he's, Chase and I have been friends for so long. He tells stories about me and thinks that they're his stories. I'm like, Chase, you didn't do that. I did that. That was something I did. He's like, no, I think I did. I'm like, no, bitch, that was me. I was the one that was in, Mexico and blah, 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 got drunk and fell. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, bitch. So that's how tight we run.
But I mean, I think when you're close to somebody like that for so long, I have a brother. I mean, so we've been together for that, you forget what you do and what they did and what you did together,
right?
How it went.
It blurs.
Yeah, it blurs.
Especially if you're like drinking and partying, having a good time. And if it's 5+ years, you can't remember that, or I can't remember it clear of what, took place or what happened. And for Chase and I, it's, when we're together, that energy is just, it's too much. It is so much. And we're just blowing and going. We're entertaining. We're shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all that shit. And it's easy to forget who was the one that actually did it or who said it. He'll tell stories about, remember that one time I said so-and-so? I'm like, no. I was the one that said that, you know what I mean? You get so tight. Like you said, it's like a brother, we've been I know him better than he knows himself, pretty much.
So, okay. So I have to ask, like, did y'all ever try to date at some point?
So initially, that's how we became friends.
Because, okay, would it be fair to say that, like, especially where y'all grew up?
Oh, yeah.
That if you met another gay guy, it was like finding another person on an island. Right. You're like, okay, I have somebody I can actually date.
These are my people. Yeah. Right. So what happened was, I still remember the first time I saw this man. He was a child then. He walked out of the mall and he was wearing this cutoff plaid shirt. And he had guy lights. He looked like Keith Urban, these tight, stonewashed jeans or whatever with these boots, and his hair was just flowing. I'm like, this man who is this? So then he went on, whatever. I was working at Taco Bell. I was like 16. Yeah, I was 16. We're at Taco Bell. He comes through the drive-thru, and I'm like, oh my God, that's that guy. And this is all within a week. So then my friend that I moved to Victoria with, she's like, oh, I have to go by my girlfriend's house and pick something up. So she goes to pick up whatever. I go inside and he's babysitting. I'm like...
He's stalking you.
Yeah. I'm like, what the shit is going on?
It's also Victoria, by the way, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm acting like we're in New York and I'm just running into someone, whatever. But since then, I've made it a point that if I see someone that I don't know 3 times, I'm introducing myself.
I think that's, yeah, great.
Ever since then, I've done that. So he he got my number in the drive-thru. He came back through Taco Bell, got my number. He sent a taxi for me to pick me up, take me to his house so we could hook up, whatever. And that was like the first and only ish time that we really like hooked up. And then we were just hanging out, but he was still with his ex-girlfriend, who he had mentioned in his podcast that he had went to visit her and her daughters. So it was like, he was, maybe I'm bi, maybe I'm not. And like, no, you're a cis, you're gay. Like, that's what it is. And after that, he started dating this guy, John, and I started dating this guy, Daryl, but we were still just like infatuated with each other as, like you said, these are my people. So we kept our friendship, and of course we didn't like cheat on our boyfriend. So it just time and time went by, and we just got closer and closer and closer. But I always say this: people are like, "How do you keep friends so long?" Especially gay guys, because they're so messy. Us not having sex really helped our friendship. There was no jealousy. I mean, there was a little bit of jealousy, from both of us, I think, but our bond grew as a brother rather than a lover. So,
well, could I be wrong that like to say that like, having sex maybe too early in a relationship can ruin any relationship, right? And so the fact that it didn't maybe happen, and then then y'all get in other relationships and it just moved on. That's what allowed y'all to actually grow y'all's friendship versus fucking it up from the beginning, right?
Because all we were doing was, and that was his thing too. He didn't know very many people. I think before he met me, he had hooked up with someone like on some, maybe it was like Craigslist back then or something. Like he had met someone in Houston or something. So he didn't have much experience with guys at that time, and we didn't even have sex. We just like hooked up, messed around. So that was like his experience, and he was still like trying to come to terms with his sexuality, and I was this person since I was fucking 8 years old. So
okay, so you moved to Victoria. Where'd you move from?
So I moved from Yorktown, Texas, which is a small podunk country. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Why are you dying? Why are you dying?
No, because I thought you were going to tell me something like I moved from like Houston or something or whatever.
No, I know.
And then I moved to Victoria and I had to adjust, like it's like Footloose and shit or something.
It's very opposite. But however, I did. But I come from this small podunk country town, population 2,000, just racist and prejudiced as all get out. And my mom passed away when I was 16, and I moved with my friend that I said was visiting her girlfriend when I ran into Chase again. So it was just like a full circle thing. But yeah, moving to Victoria was moving to the big city for me.
Sure.
Although I appeared to be big city since I was so young.
So so I grew up in Edna.
Oh.
So it's 5,000. So I get the idea, right? And I have pretty much been trying to be this since I was in. So like, what is it like to be that and grow up in like Yorktown?
Yeah. So, the only thing
okay, let me back up. Where did you get your clothes from? Like, where did you get your stuff from in this small town? Where'd you go?
So we were poor. My mother had 4 kids, and she was a single mother. So we got hand-me-downs, but my mother, she went to garage sales. She went to, Goodwill, whatever it was. So it was all from that. But she had style. So whatever she was bringing from whatever, it was a nice, it was nice clothes. It was polo or labels or whatever, which we couldn't afford then. So I knew how to make something out of nothing. And that's where I got it from my mom. She was a very stylish woman also. So she played around with the bold patterns and prints and mixed prints and her hair and stuff like that. So me taking a liking to the way she looked, I just kind of did it on my own, and they would be like, he's doing a little too much. I would wear matching sets, or I would wear stripes with polka dots, or, all kinds of shit. I'm like, this kid is like doing way too much for being in Yorktown, Texas, where everyone's wearing Wranglers and polos.
Right.
Yeah. So just my mom, pretty much from her fashion sense is where I got it.
What? Okay. So you obviously didn't give up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was your thought process probably when people were like teasing you and making fun of you, and like how did you not just shut down and stop?
Yeah. I realized very early that people were attracted to me even when I was that young, and I felt that the boys couldn't express their excitement about my appearance, and so that kind of gained me a confidence. I'm like, he's not mad that I look like this. He's mad that he likes that I look like this, and he's
Or
told
that you
not
can pull, that you do it and he
right,
can't
and
do
that
what he
yeah,
wants to do.
right, and
Yeah.
so I experimented with clothing, and I was wearing girl jeans, I was wearing flares, I was wearing big platform shoes, I was like polishing my nails. I was getting in trouble in school. They're like, Timmy, you can't polish your nails. I'm like, why not? I'm like, well, this is math class. I'm like, okay, and I want my nails to look pretty for math class. Like, what is your deal? So I was just pushing boundaries and trying to piss people off.
So where did that come from? Was your mom like that? Like,
My mom, she was a very no apologies, in your face, this is who I am, take it or leave it, like I'll fuck you up if not. She was a boss bitch back then.
okay, so where was your dad?
So I never met my dad. And the story, so growing up, it was never a thing. It was just, I just had a mom, and that was that. I didn't have a dad. Other people had dads. I didn't have one. So later on in life, I had learned that I had some health issues. So I was like, well, I want to figure out how far back they go. Where do they stem from? If it's not from my family, it must be from his. So then I started asking questions, and my mom's like, well, this is, your dad was this guy, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, well, that seems very vague for telling your child like who their father is. So as I got older, there was a lady who would like give me money, send me stuff. And it's Yorktown, it's very small, so everyone knew everyone. It wasn't, uncommon for people to be kind like that. And I'm like, why does this lady and her family keep doing that? And they're like, well, I think that her husband and your mom had an affair. And so that was the reason that I didn't know my dad, because he was married.
Okay, you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have. So I have 3 other siblings, and the oldest and my brother, they have the same dad. And then my mom separated, and then she had a daughter, and then she had me. Well, I was supposed to be put up for adoption because she couldn't afford to have another child, and then she had a child with someone's husband, and her best friend could not have babies, so I was supposed to be adopted by her best friend. And then when it came to, she's like, I can't do it, so she kept me. And another weird thing was that my father wanted to name his son Timothy, and he named him Jason or something, and then that's how I got my name, apparently.
That's crazy, right?
So it's so fucking crazy. Like, well, my family, Hispanics, there's always some like some crazy ass story. My mother also, when she divorced that man, James Wendowski, he was so crazy about this woman that he literally told her, if I can't have you, no one else will. If you leave me, I will kill you. So her sisters kidnapped her and moved her to Houston without him knowing. That's when she and had my sister out in Houston with another man that she didn't know. And then eventually she came back to Yorktown and had me with that lady's husband. It sounds so made up. Like when I say it out loud, I'm like, this is crazy shit.
Well, it's not unbelievable to me.
Right.
But it's wild that, like, especially like me being a dad now, that people make a lot of the choices that they do.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, golly, did you think of anything that was like you were doing at the time? You know what I mean? And not judging your mom, but it's like, that's what people do. I've made poor decisions. You know what I mean? Like, we just do that.
And aside from that, one of my friends was telling me that she was, same scenario. She was pregnant by this guy who was married, and she was going to have the baby and pretend it was so-and-so's. And I'm like, that's so fucked up. You don't even give the kid a chance to know their father. Like, that's not fair to the kid. Like, speaking about me, I'm like, it wasn't fair that she didn't give me the chance to know who my father was because of some dumb shit she did,
Right.
And when you say, make poor decisions, I'm like, that was like the poorest one, but I didn't know any different. You know what I mean?
It was just the way you were raised.
It was just, I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. And I seen people with dads and stuff, and it was never like weird for me or whatever. I'm just like, oh, I just have a mom. You have a mom and dad, and that's cool. It was just, All
right. So 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
One, do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you had been given away to the friend?
Yes. Well, I think a couple of things. I think about that, but then I also think, what if I was raised by an old Hispanic man who's machismo?
Yeah.
Like, would I been
Would you have?
allowed to be this person? Would I have grown to be this my true self, or would I have been like, repressed or try to live up to make him happy, to have a son that's playing football and dating girls and doing stuff like that? So I'm pretty thankful that I was allowed to be just who I am. I don't know that he would have been like that, but it does cross my mind, like, what would I be like if I had a stern dad, or someone that, in Mexican culture and growing up, they were very prejudiced. So they were calling, homos F words just loosely. So I always think about that. And then the lady, she had other kids and stuff.
The one you were going to be adopted by?
That I was going to be adopted by. They lived definitely a more rich lifestyle than we did, with money and having two parents and just living, a better lifestyle with more money.
But also that might not have cultured your style.
Right.
Because do you still thrift, or do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So you get it. Like, I mean, I do a lot of thrifting. Right. And like, you really, it's sad now. Like, these kids go through and they ransack the stores and get all the cool T-shirts and all the shirts, and they sell them on eBay.
Right.
But like when you can go to a store and find something that's so unique. I mean, it's a one of one shirt. Like, that's so like cool. You wouldn't have learned that without doing, your mom doing that.
And it's quite the opposite. And going back to Chase and his style, he was a buckle boy. So I called him. He's like, oh, that on the mannequin. I want that. And I'm like, Chase, stop doing that. You're better than that. You know what I mean? Eventually he got his own style, but he made a lot of money when he was making money in Victoria. He did really well for himself. He was well over six figures when he was 19. I mean, this kid was, doing it, but I was like, let's try to, do this. And I would switch it up. But also I was always like, I couldn't afford to spend $300 on an outfit. I'm like, you know what I could do with $300 at a fucking thrift store?
Right.
Like, this entire damn place I could dress. So, still to this day. And after I, became pretty successful in my craft, I refuse to pay full price for clothes or shit that I know that I can get. And then also in a small town, everyone's shopping at Dillard's, they're shopping at Buckle, they're shopping wherever it is. And I'm like, I don't want to wear the same shit these assholes are wearing. So that's another, thing that's kept me on the thrift.
Well, like when I asked you earlier, like, hey, where'd you get your clothes from?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would have to go, my mom, we'd go to Houston and go shopping in the malls in Houston to get clothes, because I wanted to wear stuff that like you definitely couldn't get in Edna. And the closest place was Victoria. Yeah. Right. And so
that was me in Yorktown. We would get school clothes or whatever. We get a new pair of shoes and like 2 or 3 outfits. So, of course, I wanted to wear what everyone else was wearing, which was polo and whatever. And then I started getting my own style, and I wore a lot of Calvin Klein back then. Not a lot of people wore Calvin Klein, where I was. So that was like the off-brand or whatever it was. I think maybe they sold it at like Penny's or some place like that, not like a super popular brand. And then I would mix it with, I had this old band T-shirt of someone I didn't know, and I would pair that with my my Calvin Kleins that I would either cut up or rip up or fold up or do something to set them apart from the norm, like straight or wide leg pant that everyone was wearing at the time. And I still do that.
Okay. You said that you've been like this since you were 8.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if this is the right question, but like what intimidates you? What are you intimidated by?
I don't know.
Not much, huh?
Not much.
Because I guess, like, I just keep thinking about, you don't know any better. Like, you don't know what it's almost like, is this the right statement? You don't know what it's not like to be you.
Right.
But a lot of people don't know that. They don't know what it's like to be them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I'm backwards.
Yes.
Right.
And so even me, like I'm just now learning what it's like to be me. So like I'm kind of like, how the fuck, like,
how does that feel?
Like, how does that feel to never know? And then like to just start from the beginning. Like I really wish that I would have done more like in high school, made my own clothes or had the confidence to wear whatever but I wasn't there. I was at the buckle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I was too scared. Like I would do little things here and there.
Right.
But like, I've never thought about this. When I was in high school going into college, I would have my closet like full of shit that I'd never wear.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I knew it was cool, but I was too scared to wear it. So it just like hang in my closet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I never
You never did that. And so like, do you even know why that is, or why you've been able to do this?
Yes. Well, probably two things that still carry with me that are from then till now, which is rejection and acceptance. And those two fight with each other since I grew up in this small town that was just like, we were less than because we were poor. We were less than because we were Mexican. We were less than because of whatever they wanted to say. So then I came out, and then it was
when did you come out?
God, I always say I was in the 5th grade. I think I was.
Okay.
But I was always gay. I just didn't really understand what gay meant until I understood what gay meant. So, I mean, my aunt was buying me batons for Christmas, and I was playing with the girls, and I was playing with Barbie dolls. Like, they were buying me Barbie dolls and shit. It wasn't like I was playing, with Tonka trucks in the mud. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get dirty.
Did your mom accept it or no?
Yeah. So, well, like I said, Mexican families, that's not what you're meant to do, but they never, once they learned that I was queer, they stopped with the F words and they stopped talking shit about gays. And we didn't talk about it, but they didn't talk shit about it. So that was
about as good as you're going to get, huh?
Right. And I was like, okay, so be it. So that's kind of what helped me become so confident. It was like the acceptance and the, all that stuff. I didn't need approval from them because my family approved, and that's who mattered.
Right.
So everyone else, I'm just like, fuck you. What do you want to do? Like, I'm gay, I'm Mexican. Okay. What else?
How were your brothers and sisters? Were they accepting and cool? Did they protect you, or did they separate themselves?
Well, I had this defense mechanism. So I was kind of borderline a bully. I was just like, you said what? I'm gonna kick your ass.
Well, you kind of probably always felt like you had to defend yourself constantly.
Yeah.
Who's coming up on me, right?
I will fuck you up.
Right.
So they didn't really have to, and like I said, I've been like this person, so I was well liked, even though being gay wasn't, acceptable with them. But my brother, when I finally came out to him, we were hanging out at mutual friends, and I was 14 or 15. Maybe I was younger, but they were talking about gays, and one of the guys said something about a queer, and my brother was like, he said something. I was like, well, I'm queer. And he's like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. He's like, if you are, I'll beat the shit out of you. I'll beat it out of you. I'm like, well, you're going to have to be just beaten, because that's what it is. And that was like the first time we ever got in a fight. Like, he and I grew up together. We had shared rooms, you know what I mean? Like, he was my brother. He has a different dad, but that's what it was. And one of his friends and I had like fooled around or whatever. And I was like, are you going to say, do you want me to like out you right now? Cause I mean, like, someone's going to stick up for me. So no one did. I was like, okay, whatever. So I went home. My brother and I didn't talk for probably 2 or 3 days. And then he finally like apologized to me. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. That's not how I feel. I still love you. I'm sorry. I was, whatever, with my back against the wall, and kind of felt embarrassed in front of his friends. And I was like, well, your friend like tried to hook up with me. So let's just get that shit straight. And that's another thing why I've been so like fearless, because I know people's type. I'm like, the more they fuck with me, the more they want to fuck me. You know what I mean? Is kind of how,
or at least the more curious they are about who you are. Right.
And how I grew up, and I'm pretty forgiving and understanding. And I'm like, you have to, if you have any kind of thought of your sexuality, or, growing up and realizing learning about sex, it's not like you don't think about, am I straight? Am I gay? You know what I mean? Like guys have thought about being with guys or being gay. You know, I think everyone goes through it. So I think that a lot of them project with their own insecurities of like, oh shit, I've thought about, you know, blowing a guy or getting a guy to blow me or whatever it may be. And so I feel that some of them like attack me for their own.
It's like it's like you're gonna go up to them and go, you know, you thought about sucking dick before,
Right?
And you're like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I don't. There's no
Right.
But like, that's probably how I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
But that's probably how they feel that
Yeah.
you're gonna out the thoughts in their head.
So it's like their defense. You know, when I'm on my defense, it's like, well, if I just pretend that I don't like gays or I hate the way he looks or acts or does, then no one will think that I've ever had that thought.
Right.
So.
Man,
I just blew your mind.
Yeah, well, you know, but it was kind of one of those things. Like, it just like it totally makes sense, you know, because when you're saying it, I'm thinking about myself, right? You know what I mean? And like, there's a famous comedian has this thing that, like, you know, when guys watch porn, you don't want a guy that has a small, soft penis.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching straight porn,
Yeah.
Right? Like you want a guy that's like, you know,
Yeah,
and so it's like, well, I mean, you're looking looking at it too.
You know, and I tell guys all the time, I'm like, it's no different. I'm like, you're scared of what? You beat your meat since you've been old enough to, so you play with dick all the time. Like, How is it any more gay than I am? Fuck off. Got him.
Okay, so you don't drink.
I no longer drink.
Okay, you no longer drink.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to know why you don't drink anymore.
Jesus. That's a deep rooted something that I feel that I've been suppressing with issues from my childhood, just everything we've covered, me growing up in that environment, me with the whole like no father thing, so abandonment issues. I've been hiding that. My mother died when I was young. It started heavily with that. And so after that, I was just like trying to find my way and figure out who I was. Well, I still had all those judgments from people. And I felt like I kind of put on a persona and masked it for a long time. And I would suppress a lot of issues I had. And when I got drunk, I was a fucking terror, a nightmare.
Well, probably a lot of that frustration and anger that you were holding on to just came out.
Released. And
like a volcano.
Just bad. I mean, you know, the last night that I drank, I loved my champagne, but growing up, you know, I drank beer, then I switched to liquor and did whatever. But I've been drinking for, years.
So you started drinking around 15, 16? And when
partying.
Partying.
Like I'm up all night. I'm downing, you know, a lot of alcohol, shot after bottle after vodka, champagne. I never got into drugs, but I drank a lot.
And then when did you stop drinking?
This past Halloween. I went to the bar. I live downtown Victoria. I live on Santa Rosa. That's where the other bars are. So I walked and I was like, man, it's Halloween. No one's doing anything. I want to go out and I want to party and everyone just sucks. So I'm going by myself. So I'm getting ready. I kill a bottle of champagne at my house, which is like an appetizer for me. It ain't shit. And I'm like, I'm going to be Sister Mary Clarence from Sister Act. So I got this fucking nun costume and a big old fro. And I'm just like, I'm walking down to the bar and I'm finishing there. So I go there and I show up and there's probably 10 of my friends, the close friends, like gay friends. And they're all dressed up too. I'm like, hell yeah, we're partying, we're hanging out. We're taking pictures, a bottle of champagne, another bottle of champagne, pickle shot, whatever. We're partying our asses off. And I just woke up the next day and saw some pictures. There was a picture of me in the middle of all of them, and I have this nun outfit on. So they're taking a picture, and everyone's like excited, and I have the whole dress up, and I'm just in my little man tees, just like for everyone to see, just like posing like I'm so excited. I'm just like, what a fucking mess. And so I was like, man, I need a no drink week, which I used to do often. I would just like go a week or two and not drink. And so that week turned into 2 weeks. And then I was going to training for some hair stuff. And I'm like, I'm eating all these big wigs. I can't be an asshole. So I didn't want them to see Tammy, which is my alter ego. And so I just opted out of drinking altogether because I'm not like that cute bitch that's having a glass of champagne. I'm having a bottle.
Right.
So I was like, well, I don't want them to see that, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, that week turned into a month turned into 2 to 3 to 6. And now I'm at about 9 months.
Okay. Is this the longest you've ever gone without drinking?
Yes. When I lived in California, I hung out with a bunch of models and actors. I would do their hair. And I started hanging out with them, and they lived in a sober living house. So we would go to burlesque shows, strip clubs, all this stuff, but no one would drink. And so I was like, well, I don't want to be the only one drinking in front of these, recovering alcoholics or whatever. So I stopped drinking for probably about 3 or 4 months. And I remember I went to Vegas to see Chase, and I wasn't drinking, and they were so pissed off that I would not drink. And I was just like, no, I'm not drinking. They're like, why? I'm like, because I'm sober right now. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you drink, you party. I'm like, I know, but I'm hanging out with these people, and I've been going to these meetings with them, and I'm just like not drinking. And they're like, but why? I'm like, I don't know, because my friends are doing it. I'm hanging out with these sober people. And there's always been that thought in the back of my mind that I would get sober one day, because I knew that I was masking a lot with drinking. And yeah, I didn't have one drink that whole, and they still talk about it. I did a friend's hair the other day. She's like, remember when you were sober in Vegas? She's like, yeah, we hated you for that. It was the first time we saw that 80s cover band. What are they called? They're traveling.
Oh, you got me. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, they're like a traveling band all over the country, and they have different personas of.
Oh, okay. But I'm not recognize it, but I recognize the shtick.
It's like they'll be Devo, and they'll be doing all these like skits or whatever. And they rented out this club, and there was probably 20 of us, and it was an open bar. And they were like, Timmy, get a fucking drink. And I'm like, no, I don't want to drink right now. And that was like the closest that I've ever been to getting sober, and that was 10 years ago.
Okay, isn't it crazy how whenever you decide that you don't want to drink anymore, that people are really upset about it?
So through this whole thing, so I kind of just put myself away for a good 2 or 3 months. And where I'm from, I'm very social, I'm very well known, and I'm the party bitch. Like, if it's not a party unless I'm there, it's not, I like christen it, and it's better if I'm partying with you.
I would agree.
So I kind of had that, on my back, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, going to all these events, and people are always like, oh my God, Timmy's here. Let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a shot. Let me buy you a bottle. I mean, they don't give a fuck. They're just like, we love you, want you around. We want you to party. So I was like, I can't. It's hard for me to say no. I'm a yes man. So I was like, I cannot be out here with these bitches just trying to feed me shots. So I stayed to myself for a couple of months. And then when I did start going out, it was weird. Everyone was like I had a disease, or they were, and I'm like, I'm supportive. I'm not, being sober is not for everyone. And I don't think that everyone has the same issues that I do, so them not drinking is not going to be the same as me not drinking. I'm like, I'll pour a fucking shot. People come to my house, and I'll make them shots and feed them. You know what I mean? I'm like, you don't have an issue like I do, but I did have some close friends and some friends that I ran with a lot that totally just alienated me, would not call me, did not want to hang out with me, would see me out and be like, hey, I'm like, hey, you could have called me to hang out. We're doing the same shit. You know what I mean? So it's definitely been learning of what I thought were friends.
Well, it kind of, I'm assuming when murderers are not murdering people, they're all hanging out together. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to go, they're not going to church. And so right. If you change your whole shtick that you're like, I'm not going to drink.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do. Like, you're probably not going to go out as much. Yeah. And I don't know if it's, as much as it you as it is them, or vice versa.
Same.
You know what I mean? But it's almost like naturally you just drift. They don't,
they don't know what to do or how to act. I'm like, I'm the same bitch. I'm still fun when I come up in here, and I'll be dancing, and people are like, you're like the most fun sober person I've ever seen. And how do you come to a bar and not drink? I'm like, well, I'm drinking Topo Chico. I'm still drinking. I'm just not. You want me to be an asshole to you? If that'll make you feel better, But it's been it's been crazy to see the reaction of people that are like mad at me for being sober.
Well, I don't think it's as mad. I think it's kind of one of the scenarios. They're not mad at you.
Yeah.
They're mad because they think that you not drinking has something to do with how much fun they're going to have. And you're like, well, you can have as much fun as you want to. You don't need, like, I can still be fun. Don't worry about me.
It's definitely that. You know, I told this one guy, so I go out and I'm just whatever, people attract to me. And it's always these really pretty girls that want to hang out, right?
Sure.
So then I have these guys that are decent, good looking guys, you know, whatever, but they're put in situations that they normally would not be in themselves. And it's me that brings them to these girls. So they get to go to the party with the girls or the hot girls that they normally wouldn't, and they get their chance to shoot their shot. Well, if you take me out of the equations, those girls are not going with those boys. You know, I'm the
you're the glue.
So I know that has affected some of my close guy friends that no longer hang out with me.
Like straight guys?
Straight guys. Yeah. Majority of my guy friends are straight.
Huh.
Yeah.
But before you do say you have this group of gay guys that you hang out with.
I do. I do.
What was their reaction to you not drinking more? Was people upset?
No, you know, my
isn't that surprising? Like, you know what I mean? Like here, I mean, I don't want to say that those other guys, well, it sounds shitty, but like how well of friends are those guys if they get upset that you're not basically being their pimp?
Right.
But your real friends that you hang out with were very supportive of you not drinking, right?
They'll be like, blah, blah. And they'll just be like, oh, he's not drinking. You know, they'll take,
I'll take that.
Yeah. And I do, you know, I'll do that too. And they'll be like, shots. I'm like, oh, okay. And they'll bring in like, oh, and here's a tequila or whatever this person's doing. So, but my friends, my core friends are just more protective and try not to make it a scene. Like this one guy, he was just like, oh, he's sober. He's not drinking. I'm like, you don't have to announce that. It's not that big of a deal. Like, what the fuck?
So what is your biggest takeaway so far from after not drinking for 9 months? What do you think? What's your biggest, like, you're like, wow, I didn't know this existed.
I've never needed that protectant or that.
You thought you did?
I thought I did. You know, I realize that I'm still the same fun person, just less pissed off. I'm more face value. I tolerate a lot less, that's for sure. And I'm truly me, and I'm a lot more engaged and show more emotion rather than just being angry.
Here's okay. So here's what I find interesting. Before, you said you've been this person since 8, right? And I thought we established that you were fairly comfortable in this, right? But you couldn't have been as comfortable as you said you did if you needed this protectant. Right. But you were as comfortable as you said you were. Yeah. It sounds like you just didn't believe it, because now sitting here sober, you're like, no, I can be this person and I don't have to drink to be this person.
And it was, like I said, the acceptance and whatever, fighting with each other, and it was within myself. So that's why I say this is deep, like a deep core issue that I had with myself, and it was pretty much pointless, you know, thinking that I had to suppress shit or use alcohol to cope with it, and I cope just fine.
Yeah. But I think, you know, it's easy.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy. It's like at 15, 16, and like not really knowing, like, you know, you've been doing it, but like it's probably getting harder. Yeah. You're living in a small town and the words are hurting worse. And so you're like, okay, I can numb myself.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, you almost like, it was like you cut yourself off. And you didn't give yourself a chance to grow. You're just like, I'm just going to numb myself and it'll be fine.
Yeah. And it's like I always had to be on, and I can deal with people's shit being drunk. You know, the more I grew, the more popular I got, the more confident I got. It was like an expectation of my persona that people wanted to see. But then there was also the judgment and the harsh words and the ugly comments and people being ugly to me because I was gay or just the way I looked. And so that's when I say, I've always been this person. I've always been flamboyant and into my fashion or the way I present myself. But then people like accepting it or not, that started to mess with me a lot. Also with my abandonment issues from my childhood, not being, not having a father, my mom dying early. And then these people just like hating me for being me. It was all too much. And I never like dealt with the loss of my mother. And it went straight into me being this gay. I don't even know what, it's so weird. But people have such big opinions about me based on the way I look without knowing me. So,
well, I mean, think about any famous person that we go, like, I know what Tom Cruise is like. I don't know shit about Tom Cruise. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But I think I know because I see his picture or I see his movies, right?
Yeah.
And that can happen in real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There can be someone that carries himself like you do, and people they know you already, right?
They have a perceived notion of who I am, and that's who I am, and that's it. So they don't, and I hear, oh, he's stuck up. He only likes pretty people. He's, just, I'm like, what the fuck? And who said this about me? And like, so I'm like, I've never spoken to that person a day in my life. Like, I don't know them.
Well, for me, now I did all my tattoos to myself. But now, I mean, like my persona is kind of the tattoo person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so people have preconceived notions of who I am and what I do for a living or how smart I am and stuff like that. And like, I've been told that I think about it too much, but also I'm living in this body. You're living in that body. You're living that life.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like there is a thing of I experience life a little bit differently because of what I did.
Right.
And you're experiencing differently because of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm also covered in tattoos. And I had some lady come up to me. I was at a volleyball tournament and went to go get something to eat. And she chased me outside and she was handing me this pamphlet. And I was like, what? And she's like, oh, just come see me. And I'm like, what? And she's like, oh, I'm at a church, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, thank you. And she's like, oh, I used to be like you with all these tattoos and stuff. I'm like, what? So just because she saw me with tattoos, she thought I needed Jesus. And that was, one of the things that I was kind of shielding myself from, these people just taking from me and talking about me and being ugly about me, and not even to me, but I would just hear so much shit that these people would come up with about who I was or what I was doing, nothing true about my person, just what they have seen or learned from other people based on the way I look or, that they've seen me in passing or my social media.
Well, you have worked really hard to build this, correct?
Right.
So you don't want anybody to just take it from you.
Right.
Yeah, like you don't just get to like come and just like kick in my door and take my shit.
Right.
Like I worked hard to curate what I want my life to be. Mm-hmm. You don't just get to take it from me. And like for me, like when I post online, I post very, I would say, fluffy. Mm-hmm. I don't post anything with I think is super depth of my personal life because it's mine.
Right.
Like why are you just gonna give it up to everybody?
Yeah, I'm like y'all see what I allow y'all to see.
Right.
I show y'all what I want y'all to see. But y'all don't see behind the scenes. Y'all don't see me scrubbing toilets in my house or, or boasting to push myself to get my name out there when I'm doing free events or doing free hair or doing whatever it is that I'm doing to make a name for myself and my community along with my craft. You don't get to see the blood, sweat, and tears because who the fuck wants to see that on a sappy like, oh, I had a shitty day today. I had to bust tables and fucking scrub toilets. Like, yeah, bitch, that's what you have to do if that's what you have to do to get to where you're going, then that's what you do. But your social media, your presence, your persona, they don't want to see that shit. They just want to see, oh, he was at a hair show. He was in California. He was in blah, blah, blah. And that's how you keep that, persona going. But like you said, it doesn't define, that's not only who I am, or that's not just what I do. That's just a piece that I allow you to see.
So, okay. How old were you when you came out? 13?
13 or 14. So there was two instances when I came out to my family. My sister was in trouble. We were like 2-3 years apart. So we were in school together, and she had gotten in trouble and needed something signed or a report or something. And I told my mom, I'm like, Amy was in trouble today, and the teacher asked me to get you to contact them, do whatever. You need to sign some slip for whatever she was doing. And she was like, what the hell are you doing? Blah, blah. And my sister was like, oh, yeah, well, Timmy's gay. I'm like, what? And she's like, that doesn't have shit to do with this. Go to your room, go get, whatever. And she just like carried on, didn't miss a beat. And it was just like, oh, okay, well, there we go.
Do you, this is your mom. She said this in her. Do you think your mom already knew?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
A mother always knows.
Do you think that she did not, why do you think she didn't make a big deal about it in that moment?
Well, it was like not the right time to have the conversation. And that was not my coming out. It was, and that's another thing that I learned a lot from my mother. She was just such a kind woman. It was not, it just wasn't, it wasn't right. That's not how it should have been done. My sister had no business, saying or doing that, to treat me that way, to throw me under the bus pretty much to get herself out of trouble. It's like, you don't treat people like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like that was kind of her mentality of like, we're not doing that. This is about you. This is not about him. And it wasn't like a whore deal. Like, what? You're gay? Of course she fucking knew I was twirling batons when I was, so young. But that kind of spirit of her has always, kept in my mind about like outing people like that.
So what was, when y'all did have the conversation, what was that like? Like what happened?
It was like,
did you sit her down? Did you, in that, how did the conversation start?
Like a recap of like what Amy said the other, whatever.
Oh, so it was a couple of days later.
Right. Yeah. And this was all, and I was going to these group therapy, youth therapy, some shit, for troubled teens or kids or whatever. And, some boy was just like at me. This little black boy did not like me. He was always on my shit. And it was because I was gay. And then he like called me a faggot. And my friend was like, don't call him that. He's not gay, blah, blah. I was like, no, I am gay. And it was like in a group setting with a bunch of people I didn't know. I'm like, I am gay. I'm like, however, that's not nice. And I was young and dumb. And so I said, that would be equivalent of me calling you the N-word,
Well, I mean, you were probably pissed.
Oh, I was just so mad, and the thing that he didn't know, and kind of with like how my mother was like, half my family's black, so it wasn't like I was racist, but I was trying to put him in perspective when I was that young and being outed and being, treated ugly. Like, how would you like it if someone said this to you, even though, now I would never say something like that. But, and those two instances really put me on a platform or where I was just like, I'm gay. Now what? Like I was fearless after that because I had just a circle full of people I didn't know. I was like, yes, I'm gay. And then I told my mother, who already knew. So I was like, who else do I have to prove this to? No one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great experience, and with my mother, she's like, I know, I've always known, but it's not a big deal. I'm not like mad at you or going to try to change you. It's just, be careful and be smart. And that was it. It's like, not everyone is going to like you. People don't like gay people. So you're going to deal with some
So
shit.
she was real about it, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that was the thing too. She was always like that. She didn't baby me. It wasn't like, oh, blah, blah. It was just like real talk all the time,
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, but that's another reason that I think that I am kind of who I am and the way I am.
So, okay. So you come out and then roughly 3 years later, she passes away.
Right.
So what was that like? What was that time like?
It was great.
I mean, like, it was like you're finally living. Right.
Yeah. I was like coloring her hair. I was, pretty much playing
close. Y'all got close.
Yeah, but, I grew up very fast, being that I didn't have a father. It was whatever. And like I said, she just talked to me straight up. It wasn't and sometimes I'm like, man, I missed out on a childhood, but my childhood was just different, and another thing is I felt that she set me up for my future. I was in survival mode and I was doing for myself, and I was already learning these hard things that, 12 and 13, 14-year-olds should not be dealing with. Now I would never let my child, deal with them the same way that she dealt with me, but it's a different time now than it was, back then. But I do feel that I am, as strong and confident as I am because of the way she raised me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not knowing then, but after coming out, like I said, I was like, we're sharing we're sharing Calvin Klein flare jeans at this point. You know what I mean? My mom and I, and we would, and like I said, we would thrift, we would cut our shirts, I would color her hair. And I still remember the first time I colored my hair. I pretended that I thought it was leave-in conditioner and it was sun-in, and I was in there with the blow dryer, and she's like, "What are you doing in there?" I'm like, "I'm drying my hair." She's like, "You've been drying your hair for 30 minutes. Get your ass out. Like, I got to use the bathroom or whatever." And I come out and she's like, "What the fuck did you do to your hair?" It's just like burnt orange, just like super bright.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was conditioner. She's like, "You're full of shit, boy. I heard you with that blow dryer. Get your ass out of here." And that was just how our relationship was,
If you don't mind, how did she pass away?
She had cancer. So and that's another thing with the drinking. She had cirrhosis and colon cancer, and they found out too late. So she didn't have, much time to live. I think it was a couple of months after they found out that she had cancer.
Do you ever look back at that time and just think it was kind of serendipitous in the sense of like, at least you came out before you got to tell her, and then you got to really experience a life with her? Well, did you appreciate it at the time?
At the time, no. I mean, I was appreciative that I was getting to be more of myself and not having to hide. I was painting my nails and doing my eyebrows and wearing, flamboyant clothes and whatever. And it wasn't taboo, or there was nothing weird about it. She was just like, "Okay, well, I need to borrow your jeans for, whatever." But the one thing that I do miss or regret that I never got to really know her as a person, only as my mother, which she was cool and for those times being, but like, what was it like when she was kidnapped and taken to Houston? What was it like when this man was trying to kill her? What was it like when she was going to give me up for adoption? You know what I mean? Like
all the stories you heard from other people
that I never got to hear from her or, experience. What was it like when she was, drunk and down in the dumps, and how did she feel and how she brought herself, out of it? I never got to have those conversations with her as a person. Rather than her just being my mother, and at 16, you don't know shit, or 15,
Well, you don't even know what questions to ask.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like you see them. It's kind of like when you see your teacher outside of school. It's like, oh shit.
Like, what do I say to her?
What is that? So that's kind of like how I saw her. I didn't get to see her as a woman who was trying to raise kids on her own, low income and stuff like that. So,
well, both my parents are still alive. And so at 47, like you don't know what questions to ask. Like I only now know, like as becoming a dad too, of like things to ask them about their lives. You don't know to ask that at 16. And so when your parent passes away early, you get robbed a lot of like, just like history and answers and who they were and stuff like that. And that really sucked. And then, like as an example of like not having a dad in your life, you don't ever get to do any of those things. Yeah. Because there's nobody there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that sucks.
Yeah. And she was, 2 and 1 who did for me what needed to be done. And then it was just like stripped after it was already taken, from me. So that's something that I don't wish upon anyone. I remember when she was passing, I was like, "I don't know what I'm going to do without you." And she's like, "You're the only one I'm not worried about." She's like, "You're going to do what you need to do." She's like, "You're going to be the one to take care of everyone, and you're going to be the one to blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, this bitch is crazy. She's dying and telling me I'm, 15, 16, that I'm going to be who I am today. And I was like, okay, well, I guess she knew what the fuck she was talking about. So,
okay. Do you think there's any way where she tells you that statement, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe she doesn't necessarily believe it, but she's like empowering you, and just her saying those words, whether you thought or not, you were like, well, I got to do it because she said that's who I am. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially like at 15 and 16, right?
It's definitely been my backing. I don't have a backup plan, and anytime I would get down or low or whatever, it was always that that pushed me to drive. So.
She gave you like a great gift.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, when you're that young, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. And my first job was McDonald's, because you could work there when you were 16. And then it was right next to Taco Bell, and the people from Taco Bell asked me to come work from them. And then there was a guy that worked at another restaurant. He's like, we love coming to see you. Can you come work for us? And then someone from them was like, my boss wants you to work. We're opening this new restaurant. You'll be a host, and then we'll make you bartender, blah, blah. We want you to work for us. So like, just from that little shit, I was just constantly like, they're like, oh, we want you here. Oh, we want you here. Oh, we want, you know what I mean? So it was like, it was a ego boost and a power thing that I was just like, oh shit, okay, this is who I am. You know, I was like sought out after or wanted. When you're that young, it's like, you want me to what? And so that's another thing that I think stems from Lydia, having that small little conversation that projected me to get here.
I keep having this thought, like, are you and Chase a lot alike? Are y'all very similar?
We do share a lot of characteristics or like core.
Do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes from you kind of moving to Victoria with what you had, and then living in Victoria with him, and then y'all kind of meshing together y'all's kind of life of how to live?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, we did. That's why I said our energy when we're together is just unstoppable. It's you can spot us out of a room, and it's just that same energy, that same heart, really.
Yeah.
And it stems from both of our mothers, and I know his mom really well, and we are in each other's lives, and we text and talk shit about Chase, and we call each other Supremos. Actually, on the way up here, I passed this store, and a long time ago, Chase had gotten a DUI or something. We were very young, and his mom, we were coming back from Austin. We lived here, we were like 19 or 20, something like that. And we were like, pull over at that convenience store. We want to get some roadies. And he's like, are y'all fucking serious? I just got this DUI and y'all in here drinking. We're like, yeah, bitch, you're a dumbass. We're going to party. And so we're like we're like playing music, and me and his mom were just like singing our hearts out. He was so annoyed just driving. I'll never forget that. And we made him pull over for that. And I call her Supremo. We were singing the Supreme, so we call each other Supremo. But his mom has a big heart, and she kind of came up, similar story as my mom. They never met, but I was like, they would be running buddies for sure and kicking ass, and just the way that they.
Did she feel a little bit of a role of a mom for you?
Terry, yeah, she did. And of course, I'm accepting of it because she was very similar. I'm very big on energy, and I can read people really well and feel, their intent. And she was always just like she still is, she has some health issues and whatnot, and living in Vegas, and still she's very nurturing and mothering, even when she's the one that needs to be mothered or taken care of.
I mean, that's a mom, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was super nice having that. And, Chase of 20-something years, best friends, just divas, if you will. We've had issues with each other in certain situations.
Brothers are going to fight.
Right. And there's Terry just, well, y'all need to make up. I'm like, I'm tired of making up with this bitch. He doesn't deserve me.
Oh, okay. So how many times have we met before? Maybe twice? 3 times?
This is probably the third time.
This is the third time. Okay. And you're good at reading people.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what do you feel and know about me right now after their third time of meeting?
Right now, it feels a lot lighter than the first time for sure. And then the second time, it was more like you were like, oh, okay, well, that's who that is. But I feel like the first time, like, okay, this motherfucker's a lot, and he's probably trying to hit on me, and that's not what I'm doing here. So we're just going to keep him at a distance.
It wasn't that. Okay, so if I had to do it from my perspective of like, do you understand that you're intimidating? Do you understand? See, I understand that you don't understand that, but you have to understand that there is an intimidation factor. Like when you rolled up, to the house today, I was like, this motherfucker is like, is on already. Yeah. I'm so excited. And so, but it's, I was kind of like, man, do I need to step up my game a little bit? And so, but in a good way, that's a good thing.
And for me, that's not.
You're not doing that at all. This is for you.
That's none of me. Yeah.
Right? This is all for you, right?
I'm pulling up, listening to fucking Evanescence. Like, you know what I mean? I'm eating Reese's Pieces. I'm just like, okay, cool. I wonder what we're going to talk about. Like, kind of the same, energy. Like, I hope this goes well. I hope we have good conversation. I hope this is fun. How could it, just like thoughts like that. But I'm not like, oh, I'm rolling up in this bitch and I'm here like, this is just like,
That's who you are.
This is just who I am. I don't know how to be anything else. And that's what I say, people see that and they think that, and I'm like, that's furthest I'm like the nicest, sweetest, accommodating, most understanding person that I know. And I know a lot of fucking people.
Well, I think, I dress and a little differently. I mean,
Yeah.
you're bringing it, I bring it
Right.
on some level, right? And people like, when you take you and you drop you in just about any crowd of people, they're like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Right. And you're not doing that because you're like, hey, people come talk to me.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you're like, this is who I am. And so then people are automatically attracted to you. My tattoos open a lot of conversations for people. Your hats probably open a lot of conversations for people.
And learning myself. And that's another thing about my sobriety too, accepting that persona, that intimidation factor, and that people are,
you have to be, somebody like you has to be gentle with people sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they're expecting something, and when you don't bring it, they're kind of like, are you going to bring it?
Right, yeah.
Wait, are you just being nice right now?
Right.
Like, when are you going to be an asshole?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like it's tough, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes to be yourself.
Yeah. And, with the not drinking thing also, I'll go out and they'll be like, are you okay? You seem a little like awkward. I'm like, yeah, I can be a little awkward sometimes. Sometimes I have social anxiety. Sometimes I'm not on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
people expect you to be on, don't they?
And that
all
was
the time.
That was another thing too, with the whole like persona, going out and doing events and just being in Victoria and being me. It's like I always had to be on. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, I'm in fucking gym shorts and I'm in, Birks, and this is what my day is. Someone the other day was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, why? And it was a guy I didn't know. He just knew me like socially. He was all, Timmy, what's up? Blah, blah. I was at the bar and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Why? He's like, well, you just don't seem like your big old, party self personality. I'm like, this is my party personality right now today. That's the one. And he was just like, okay, bye. But he just knows me through social media. So he just sees Timmy partying, Timmy popping bottles, pretty girls and blah, blah, blah. So he was like, I'm like, this is me.
Everybody's pretty kind of normal.
Yeah.
Like, even the most famous celebrity, when they go home, they're not dressed up. Like, Taylor Swift's not like decked out on her couch, like, and shit, like just sitting with her legs stiff. You know what I mean? She's in like pajamas,
Like, but I can honestly say there are times when I'm at home and I am
kind of decked out.
I just do. I'm weird. Sometimes I'm like, I'm that old weird gay guy who's, doing fucking painting in his kitchen and singing karaoke by himself, chugging Topo Chicos. I'm like, what is going on? But it's pretty like eccentric and pretty out there, even when I'm with myself at home. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of crazy. So
this last segment is brought to you by HeyJustBe.com. I believe that achieving balance in the mental, physical, and metaphysical aspects of your purpose by incorporating learning, serving, and creating can transform your life into one that you truly enjoy living. Want to know more? Go to www.heyjustbe.com. So how I usually like to wrap this thing up is I usually ask people like how they take care of themselves so they can take care of everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the things that you do to take care of yourself so you can be the best Timmy you can be? Do you read book? Are you a reader?
I'm a reader, but I'm not a finisher.
Okay, fair.
I haven't finished a book in a long time.
Do you exercise?
I do. I ride bikes downtown. I used to do yoga a lot and meditate. I have not done that. I stretch a little bit, but I do the gym. My outlets are hair, which is my job, painting, which I've just recently, about a year or so into it, and volleyball is my. So really quickly, how's painting going? Are you liking painting? I am. I got COVID for the last time last year in June. And I got vertigo from it. It was an after effect. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I went to see doctors and all this stuff. I thought something was wrong. The last step, I was about to go see a cancer doctor because I was like, something is wrong with my head. And then I was like locked in my house. You know, I couldn't move, I couldn't drive, I couldn't work. So I just picked up a pencil and started sketching. And I was like, what the hell? And I have a tattoo of this Native American woman on my leg. And I was like, those seem like pretty simple lines. I bet I could draw that. So I just eyed it. I took a picture of it and then I sketched it out. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I'm like, let me try something else. So I did a Native American man. And then I just started drawing all this shit. And one of the guys I collected art from in town, I'm like, look what I did. He's like, did you trace that? And I'm like, no, it's a picture of whatever. And I drew it. He's like, you drew that freehand? I'm like, yeah. He's like, your symmetry is crazy. I'm like, well, I'm crazy. And what I do all day is I cut hair. So that's, you know,
It's art.
lines is what it is. And then I just got into it. And he's like, try to do this, and gave me all these like homework assignments pretty much to try to do whatever. And he became like my mentor. And then it was, you know, I just got lost in it. And I was in my house just painting with vertigo. And I was just as free as could be within my art. And so I started doing all these art shows and shit. And it was so weird because, you know, my persona, I was a hairdresser, I was a party girl, I was whatever. And putting myself out there with this work. And I'm like, I'm showing work next to artists that I look up to, and I'm just some little gay boy that is a hairdresser, and I'm at a, you know, presenting my art. And I'm like, what if they don't like it? What if, and I've never been that kind of vulnerable of worrying about what people thought, but definitely doing art, I'm like, shit, they're gonna talk shit about me. They think this little character is, you know, dumb or whatever. And then it just helped me through that.
I just like how you're gay and you weren't worried about that in front of people, but you're like, I'm gonna do art, and like I'm really scared how people are gonna view this.
Yeah. See, when you're like, what are you intimidated by? I was like, what am I intimidated by? That was, you know, something that I was kind of like, and it was just for a second though. And then I made myself do it. I'm like, this scares me. I don't know how to feel. So just put my shit out there, and I got through. And the next one, I was like, I don't give a fuck if they like it or not.
You're growing in that moment, right?
Yeah.
That kind of free falling fear is like that growing. But you probably found something that I was thinking probably, and this would be my guess, your sobriety has maybe been easier because of that one thing.
It definitely helps.
Yeah,
you know?
because like you're getting more in touch with yourself. You don't feel like you have to drink or cover up or protect. You know, you get with yourself, right?
Yeah, and then I'm just like putting my shit out there when I was trying to like recluse. And now I'm like, hey guys, look at this dumbass, you know, one-eyed top hat man that I made. And they're like, oh my God, how much? I'm like, it's not for sale. And then I'm like, oh shit, people want to buy my shit.
Yeah.
It's been very, very, very good for my mental and my psyche.
You do okay. So do you do sand volleyball?
I do both. I started playing sand volleyball, but like this weekend, so I came here to do this podcast, and then I'm doing New Braunfels tomorrow with some girlfriends, some friends for dinner and some live music, and then Sunday I have a volleyball tournament in San Antonio.
A sand volleyball tournament?
No, it's indoor.
Okay.
So we play back home in Victoria. I play with a bunch of youngins, and I'm talking about like 17, 18, and I'm old enough to be their dads. So I'm the old man on the court, but you know, I still fuck it up a little bit.
That I don't like volleyball at all.
And you look like a volleyball player.
No, I could get that. I just don't. I don't know why. I think it's probably from I'm scarred from like when we were kids.
Yeah.
Because we would play like at my little school, we would play volleyball on this cement thing where they would just pour like kind of like gravel rock stuff, and then that would be the volleyball court. Right. And then, you know, and like it was just hot, and, you know, I wasn't good at it, and it just kind of ruined me for life. You know what I mean? And then I watch these people playing sand volleyball, and I'm like, golly, how do y'all do that? I mean, like, you got to cover some ground and fast and like, you know.
Yeah. When they're playing like here in Austin, they play out at wherever out here, and they play doubles. And I went to go visit a friend out there. She's from Victoria. She lives here now. And I'm like, I cannot keep up with any of you bitches. Even the worst players out there, I'm like, nope, that's not for me. Sand is hard as fuck, but when you play sand, you're better indoor.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
A lot faster and whatnot. So,
okay. So I want to ask you just one question about cutting hair.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you've been asked a ton of questions about like cutting hair. Have you? Not really, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you love cutting hair?
I
That's
do.
not the question, but do you love cutting hair?
I do.
What do you not like about cutting hair? People's nasty scalps.
No, nothing.
Doesn't bother you?
Yeah, someone came in the other day and it was a little girl and she's like, her mom was like, she's so embarrassed because she has dry scalp. I'm like, girl, I got dry scalp too. Like, it's not, it's to the point where I find hair in my food. I'm just like, oh, she's a ginger. Okay. And go on eating it because I'm just not, there's nothing that grosses me out. Even when I was very young in my career, I worked for Tony and Guy in the Woodlands, and it was in the middle of the day, and this kid came in, and I was like, that's weird that they're here, whatever. Anyway, the kid had lice, and we had to like everyone that was in the salon had to get out.
Oh,
we had to go through this whole process of like sanitizing and cleaning and blah, blah, blah. And that was probably the worst thing that I've ever dealt with in hairdressing. But I wasn't even grossed out. It was just annoying that I had to clean every brush and comb and nook and cranny and sanitize and mop and all that. But that was a long time ago.
Did you ever want to be anything other than a hairdresser?
I did. I used to want to be a mechanic.
Really?
And a photographer, yeah. But I didn't want to have dirty hands. So I know. And that's a big thing too. Like
you're like, I just thought it'd be a good way to pick up guys.
Yeah. I was always fascinated with how cars worked. And so I was like, I want to figure it out myself, deconstruct and put back together. But I was like, you see all these mechanics and their hands are just beat the fuck up. And I'm like, that's a no for me. So that whatever, but I did growing up, I had probably 7 Mustangs and I worked on them a little bit, just like changing bullshit out. They're so easy to work on. So I did a little bit with that, but I never got into that. And then, the photography thing, I'm constantly taking pictures of my work, of myself, and documenting my life pretty much. So I kind of get a glimpse of that. And then also being a counselor to youth children or troubled children or special needs. I've always wanted to do that, which I do work for CASA. So I get a little bit of that, but also as a hairdresser, I'm just like a therapist all day long.
All day long.
People tell me so much shit.
You don't even want to know.
You would not believe. Yeah.
I get, you get, I bartended, you get the same thing, bartending, right? Any service industry where you're one-on-one training.
Yeah.
Like if you spend that much time with a person, it's almost like, it's like truth serum. The time is truth serum. And they just start telling you everything. You're like, I don't want to know these things.
Yeah. It's like they sit in my chair and then just start spilling their guts. I'm like, oh shit, that I do.
That person's hair or her husband's
and
hair.
It's like, oh my God, my sister is sleeping with so-and-so's husband. I'm like, they're all my clients.
Especially like in a town like Victoria, it's not huge,
Yeah, it's easy to be, there was last month, one of our friends, she broke up with her boyfriend and they were like a great couple. They're young. I was like, oh my God, there's a chance, they're setting the standard at the bar and then they break up and it's all over their social media. And one of the girls used to work with her and I'm like, oh shit. Yo, Brandy, did you hear about blah, blah, blah? And so they broke up. He was cheating on her. It was some bitch at work, And like, who? And I'm like, I forget his name, but I was like yelling his name. I'm like, so-and-so. And she's like, what? Really? I'm like, yeah. Not even 2 minutes later, he fucking comes from the back of the salon. Hey, hi, how are you? I'm like, holy shit. Like fucking Victoria. That's how small that town is. So, it was a thing when we would be spilling tea and talking shit, whatever, we'd be out to lunch and it'd be like looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Let me see who's
you have
here.
to.
Yeah.
That town's small.
So little. Well, if it's Edna, Texas, Jesus.
Well, did you have a good time?
I did. Yeah. We got real, we got deep, we got real deep.
Was this the most fun you've had on a podcast so far?
Absolutely.
Awesome. See, I got you on camera. You got to say it right now. Later, you can tell me like, no, really not.
No,
so,
it was good.
So usually I ask everybody to give me a hug. So if you'll jump up there, like give me a hug. Oh man, thank you for doing this so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.